Oh, he's drinking.
covering up the logo. They're not a sponsor. Hey, everybody. It's Saturday morning, April 10th already.
Yeah.
10 a.m. on the West Coast, 1 o'clock on the East. Holy moly.
We're in the April now.
We're in the April, and I've got so many things to talk about. I don't know if we have enough time today, but we're going to start the show, and then we'll start the conversation.
Sounds great.
It's time to start your engines and be part of the conversation. You can always ask the experts, Raffi and Dan Rosenberg, because it's now time for Clutch Radio. The show starts now.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning, Dan.
The voice, Eric did such a good job on the voice of that whole intro. He just did a good job on. So thank you again, Eric, for the wonderful work you do behind the scenes on this show, and in front of the scenes, and behind the scenes on the other two shows we do. Anywho, I want to talk about something very interesting. And by the way, you can put your questions in the comment section on Facebook or YouTube. I don't think we'll see anything you post on Twitter. So go to YouTube or Facebook if you want to send us something during the show. I've been looking at a lot of do-it-yourself videos on YouTube.
Sure. Yeah.
And I am really impressed with a few of them. I'm gonna call out two different guys, YouTubers that I watch a lot recently, that I've watched a lot recently. And I was explaining this to my son last night, that I have this sense of I can do anything with cars all of a sudden. Whereas I used to be intimidated by anything I had to do on a car.
Sure.
You know, changing the oil, or changing spark plugs, or changing a hose, or God forbid a muffler or something like that, or fluids. And I started to, I was just curious about something on this car I'm working on. And I found this guy. He goes by the name Chris Fix. And he's got to be in his early 20s, if not late teens. I mean, he sounds really young. He's doing it in his driveway. All the repairs done in his driveway. He's got no major equipment. Everything he has is stuff that, you can get at your Ace Hardware. You don't even have to go to an auto parts store, or, you can order it online. But I watched him change the fluids in a T-Bird. Ironically, it was an 05 T-Bird.
Okay.
Similar to the one that recently sold on Bring a Trailer, except not as nice. He changed all the fluids. He changed the transmission fluid. He changed the oil. He changed the brake fluid. He changed the rear end, the differential, everything.
Wow.
And he made it so easy. I was like, I could actually do this, I think. And he shows you these are the simple tools, and this is how you set it up. And I was really, it empowered me to realize, I've screwed up a lot of things on cars because I just guess.
Sure.
And other times I will, I'll go online, I'll try to find something. And a lot of them are like, well, you need this tool, which is $7,000, and you need this lift. You got to have a lift. If you don't have a lift, why are you even watching this? And I don't have any of that. And not that I've done any of the things that he said yet, but he had a car that he bought a car. It was a Chevy Trailblazer for $400 that did not run, would not start. It was dead. And the paint was horrible, and it was missing a little trim piece on the body. The interior was just wrecked. And he said, there's only 5 things that can make a car not run. And he went through them. He said, well, first, let's see if it has spark. No, it doesn't have. Well, let's change a new battery. No, it's not that. Went through all these things, and he realized it was the fuel tank was shot. And the fuel tank was actually melted because the muffler had basically just opened up, and it was just hot air just coming out, and it melted the fuel tank.
Wow.
And it's an amazing video to watch. It he just goes through step by step by step, and he gets the thing to turn over, and it now runs and drives. And then in the next video, he puts in the muffler and he goes to the junkyard and gets $100 gas tank, and he buys a brand new fuel pump for it, and he just goes through everything. And it's like in real time. It's not like when you watch on these reality shows, in 30 minutes they restore a car. Well, that obviously there's 30 hours minimum of what they've done. This is almost completely in real time, other than going and shopping.
Hmm.
And I recommend a lot of these videos. Like I would say, if you have any question about how to fix something on your car, even if you plan to take it to a mechanic and you just want to make sure that they're not screwing you, because I feel like if you go to a mechanic and you just, I don't know what it is,
Right.
they'll check everything and charge you for everything they've checked.
Right.
And in another one of his videos, somebody gave him a car. His neighbor just said, here's a car. I can't get it to run. I took it to the dealership. Here's the new computer for it. Here's the old computer. They put a new computer in it. They put a new air sensor in it. They put all these things in it. And he went through the drill and figured out it was the timing belt. It hadn't snapped, but it had jumped. It was loose and it jumped. So the timing, it was way off and it would not turn over. He fixed that. And suddenly he's got a running and driving 1998 Honda Civic with like 80,000 miles on it that the guy just gave him the car. Again, you take it to a mechanic, they don't always know. You have to learn how to know some things on your own.
So you illustrate the point perfectly regarding why most people don't spend the time figuring out what's wrong with their car. And that has to do with the challenge of diagnosis. And this is true in the medical community as well. Your solution is only good as the diagnosis. If you remember taking the SAT, the entrance examination, they tell you spend as much time on the question as you do on the answer. And sometimes they say spend 75% of your time on the question and 25% on the answer. And this is true with cars. The more time you slow yourself down, most people, when they try to solve a problem with a car, they think the car needs to be fixed. So they approach the car by trying to fix it. And that's the biggest mistake of all. You approach the car by trying to figure out what's wrong with it first. That's the separate part from the fixing part. The fixing part can be very short.
Yeah.
It's the diagnosis part that takes a long time. And that's where professional automobile mechanics sometimes can run up a high bill, because they're spending a lot of time trying to figure out what's wrong with your car, and diagnosis is expensive. So if you can diagnose on your own, that's a fantastic way to learn. I learned it because my father would leave a car that he normally drove to work at the house, and a note on the kitchen table: something's wrong with the car, please fix it. And the first time he did it, I was 13, 14 years old. I call him in his office. He said, Dad, so what's wrong with the car? He says, if I tell you what's wrong with it, I'm denying you the opportunity to figure out the most important part of fixing it. I'm like, okay. So I'd go out and I'd have to check everything. I'd crank it, I'd look at it, I'd check it out. But he taught me to diagnose before fixing. And oftentimes, mechanics in your shop, they don't diagnose before fixing. A car comes in, it's running rough. They check the things that they most typically feel could likely be the problem. They don't actually spend the time because, in their defense, they don't often have the time. They're trying to make as much money as they can in and out the door doing their mechanical service work. And a lot of them will rely on their personal expertise. So if they're used to fixing cars that typically come in and have fuel-related problems, that's where they're going to go. It's a fuel problem. So they leverage their expertise instead of having a much more broad perspective on diagnosis. So yeah, go ahead.
It goes to the old saying, that you should always measure twice and cut once.
Yep, absolutely.
Right back to that.
And these the great thing about YouTube videos, and there are a lot of them, and they're extremely helpful. They really leverage the one of the most important components of problem solving, and that is the visual story. So you're carrying around a camera and you're talking about the problem, you're talking about the situation. So it unfolds slowly, and it gives you a chance to kind of slow down and listen to a very similar story. So YouTube has become a bit of this tribal fire where we all gather around and we listen to the story of somebody who, took this journey, and this is the result of what they found on their journey. Then you go out to your car and you try it. And, a lot of people won't necessarily be successful, but that's okay. As I tell people, try it yourself first. If it isn't successful, you're going to tow the car to the mechanic anyway. You can't make it substantially worse. You can make it partially worse, but it can't be substantially worse. And along the way, you learn something. We spend so much time telling our kids, go to college. And then we spend thousands and thousands of dollars on classes in college. And yet, if you go and spend $2,500 on a car that doesn't run, park it in the driveway and tell your kid, if you can figure out how to get it to run, it'll be your car. There's $2,500 for the rest of their life. That's a fantastic investment in trying to manage the responsibility and maintenance of an automobile. And it's a great way to do it. People oftentimes say to me, I want to buy a good car for my kids so he's safe. She knows how to drive. I trust her very much. What kind of car should I get? And well, if she's even marginally mechanically inclined, consider getting your kid a car that needs a little bit of work and helping them financially fix it up. Do it together as a project, help them out, do some YouTube videos. It can all be done.
Yeah. And I'm realizing I probably spend more time on YouTube than Google.
Yeah. And that's an interesting thing because Google doesn't have that visual narrative. YouTube offers the visual narrative, which sort of tells you that story. And the voice that you hear is reassuring you. When you hear somebody talking about a problem 6-7 minutes into the problem, they go, oh man, I really should have done this. But that's a good reminder for you guys out there. Make sure you're talking to somebody who's feeling your pain also. If you're just Google search engineering, you're looking for the item that's going to come up the fastest, that's going to have paid the most for search engine to come up first.
And half the time you find, like on a Reddit or a chat board or something, somebody asks a question that's exactly what you're asking, and you go in and you start reading it and you realize no one knows what they're talking about and they never found the solution. So you spent 20 minutes reading this, and then you go, oh, this is from 2008. Like, what am I doing here? But you go on to YouTube, you just type it in, and I swear every little item, like I had to fix a door on a car, every little item was showing up for it. The biggest problem I had with fixing a door on this car was everything it said was with the door already open. It was how to fix the handle, but on every video, the door was already open. So now I had to use my brain and go, oh, how do I open the door now? Because the handles aren't working. I can't get the door to open. Yeah. And so I just, I played with it, and I noticed there was a cable that was loose on the inside little doohickey. It's an official term. And I just grabbed a wrench and I started pulling on that cable, thinking, well, that might unlock the door. And it didn't. But all of a sudden I heard this weird noise. I noticed the door moved a little bit. And so I literally just banged on it a couple of times from the outside, and I pulled on the handle really hard, and the door opened from the outside. The inside handle still doesn't work, but I got the door open, and then I realized there's a little button at the bottom you push, and the whole panel can come off.
Yeah, there you go.
But you have to have the door open. No one else had my problem. So I might actually do a video on what I did, although I really don't know what I did. I don't really know if I can help anybody, but I did.
You could actually admit that in your video. It's diagnosis, trial and error, experimentation, and then comes knowledge, because you don't gain that knowledge until you've actually, jumped in and really experimented with what's going on. The one thing that I always remind people to do is, if you're working on a car problem and you figure out how to solve that problem, it's a good idea to do it again, as soon after, because the first time you spend maybe 2 hours trying to solve the problem and actually execute it on it, try it again and see if you can compress the amount of time that you spent on it. The first time I did a brake job, it took days. The car was out, for days. And the second time I did it, I was able to get it done in a matter of hours. Yeah. So it's a really good idea to form some proficiency. The other thing that YouTube videos do, which is really, really important, is whenever you try and explain or teach to someone else, you get better at it. And your method of story delivery, your refinement of the process, you eliminate all the stuff that wasn't helpful, but you tell a complete narrative to the next person, and then they're able to go, oh, okay. And then they go on their journey for that. Their frustrations along the way, they'll answer, and then they'll end up with a finished product.
And it's like it cracks the code. Like once you watch somebody do it, like, oh, and I've been so intimidated by auto repair my entire life. You know, all the shows I've ever done about the car business have always been buying and selling. I've never done repair shows because I'm so intimidated by it. Then I realized I kind of know it a little bit just from being around it, because my dad owned an auto parts store. My brother was very mechanical. He was always fixing stuff, and he would change brakes with no, like, oh, okay, you do this, and, you know, change the brake shoes or change the pads. I have no idea what he's doing, but I realized it's actually not that hard to do that. You just have to do it again and again and again, so you know what you're doing.
Yeah. You know, it's funny you mention it, because just yesterday I went to see someone who contacted me just randomly through connections. And he said, I just got an Austin Healey and it needs a complete restoration. And could you come over and make sure I'm, you know, not too ambitious or too crazy? And so I went over and I saw it, and it was very needy. And I went over with him. What are your skills? Where are you going to do the work? Say again.
It was an Austin Needy.
Yes, it was an Austin Needy.
Sorry.
And you know, we went over everything, and almost immediately he said, you know, I tell you what I have been doing is I've been watching, just devouring YouTube videos. And I said, that's great, because it's like you know, you're in seminars, excellence seminars, and you know, the community has weeded out the ones that aren't good, because you're going to watch the one that has 26,000 views instead of the one that has 1,100. And even if you watch both of them, you're maybe combine some of what you learn from both of them and then go from there. But it's really amazing how much you can learn just by gathering information from video.
Yeah. And then for entertainment purposes, and I learned something too, there's a guy, his channel is called Vice Grip Garage, and his name's, I think, Daryl or Darren or Derek. And he's from Minnesota, and he kind of talks funny, and he's got little anachronisms, and he calls everything, you know, like he calls the battery like the electro spark cube, and he calls the you know, gasoline get her going juice. He's got all these funny sayings. But I started watching him because he found a car like in the middle of a field that had been sitting there for 25 years, just sitting in, and it was like this deep into the mud, and the whole frame was sitting on the ground.
Yeah. And
he got the car running in the field. He slowly, you know, same thing, goes through the 5 different steps. Do we have spark with this? Does it motor turn? Gets the car running, and then he drives it home 600 miles from like South Dakota to Minnesota. And just watching his road trip, and it's so entertaining to watch this guy. And it's a fun show. But I also learned from that too, because every time he goes, you know, he'll stop at an Advanced Auto Parts or an O'Reilly's or Harbor Freight Tools, and he shows you, well, I just get these simple tools and I do this and I do that. And it's really made me feel a little more confident in doing some stuff myself and saving money. You know, if I'm gonna fix up an older car, you know, I used to always just send it. You know, when I had my 62 Chrysler, I changed the spark plugs. I think I did that once. That's all I ever did to that. I spent thousands of dollars of putting into other people's pockets that I probably could have done a lot of that work myself.
Sure. And look, with cars, especially older cars, they're not that complicated mechanically. And even newer cars, I like to remind people that if mankind put it together, you're a member of mankind. You can take it apart. You can fix it. There's the only thing that anybody who does the work professionally has over you is more vastly accumulated knowledge and the ability to do it faster. Yeah. It's not that you lack the ability to do it at all. It's the speed in which it gets done. You can hire a company to professionally restore your 64 Jaguar XKE, and they'll have it done in a year because many people work on it and they know what to do, where to go, how to put it all together. But you can do it. It might take you 3, 4, 5 years because you probably will have to do things several times over. When I built my first car, I did things several times over because I had no idea what I was doing. And I didn't know until I put it all together and saw that things didn't fit together and I had to take it apart and start over again. But that's part of the process.
Yeah, and I built furniture. You know, I buy something from IKEA or something. You know, like the desk I have here is a sit stand desk, and I had to build it. And I put something on completely wrong, and I was 10 steps past that point where I realized, oh, wait, this is wrong. And I had to undo everything. But those 10 steps that took 45 minutes only took like 10 minutes for me to undo and redo because I had already done it. So,
exactly.
Yeah. So let's go to the comments a little bit. Adam says, video or not, anything beyond some routine maintenance on a car is beyond my comfort zone. That even routine maintenance, I mean, changing a filter, okay, air filter, I can do that. On an old car where you unscrew the wing nut and you take out the filter, you put in a new one. That's all I could do. Yeah. Now, I could probably do a cabin filter. I think I feel confident enough that I could go into the glove box and remove the door and go in there and change out a cabin filter and save myself $50 at the dealership.
Basic stuff like filters, wiper blades, headlight changes used to be basic. They're not anymore.
No.
But simple, easy maintenance type things are pretty easy to do. You just got to take the first step to do it. And oftentimes what I tell people to do is if you take your car to a shop and say, I need a new battery, just stick around and watch and see how they do it. See what they do. It's not a complicated process, but there's certain things you want to remember when you do it. Just the other day, I probably have put battery terminal clips on batteries hundreds of times in my years. And just the other day, I was in the garage and I looked over, I went, okay, that's positive, that's negative, clip, and the thing went spark. And I had just simply done it too quickly and had confused what I thought was positive and negative and put it on the backwards. And so I had, immediately, of course, realized what was wrong. But, there's, unless you're doing something with a high level of maintenance, like you've got a car jacked up and you're underneath it where there's serious danger there, most general maintenance can be very easily done by looking at your owner's manual, purchasing a shop manual, and slowly but surely going at it. I do recommend for people that are do-it-yourselfers, when it comes to things like brakes and getting underneath your car, don't do those things. Qualified shops can do your brakes very effectively, very cost effectively. They're part of your safety system with your vehicle, and you do not want your brakes to fail. Do not jack up your car and get underneath your car under any circumstances, because jacks will fail and the car will fall on you, and that is catastrophic. So if you're going to work underneath your car, if you are compelled to do that, whether you're semi-professional or knowledgeable or even curious about doing it, if you jack your car up, put a set of ramps underneath it so that when the wheels are up in the air, you get some ramps underneath it. I don't even recommend you drive your car onto ramps. Many people do that. That's also potentially dangerous. Jack the car up, block the car with either jack stands underneath or put your ramps under your wheels, whatever it is. But again, if you're a novice or an amateur or even a semi-skilled intermediate mechanic, there's really no reason other than changing your oil for you to be under your car. And even then, you do not have to be dangerously under your car to undo the oil spigot and let the oil drain out and put new oil in. And then when it comes to things like that, understanding how to do it sometimes is more important than physically doing it, because you gain that knowledge. You don't have to do it. You go get your oil changed for $40. Now, if you're so strapped that you don't have $40 to change your own oil, that you have to change your own oil, certainly go ahead and do that. But for $40, it's good assurance that it'll get done right. It'll get done professionally, and you won't put yourself in danger jacking your car up trying to figure out how to change your oil.
Yeah, and a lot of places have like self-service lifts that you can go to. A lot of communities have those where you can go in, you can rent the garage, you drive your car in, put it on a lift, and, you rent the bay for, whatever, $50 an hour or something. So if you want to go and do something on the underside of your car, you can do that. Even when I've had my cars worked on and they're at the garage and they're up on the lift, and the mechanic, yeah, come here, look at this. I'm like, I'm good. I'll just kind of lean. Like, I still am afraid to get under a car that's on a lift, because I'm like, what if? And I was told, well, they've got so many backups and there's little locks in place. I'm like, but still, you never know. And unless there's an old grandmother around to have an adrenaline kick in or lift it off me, I'm not going to deal with it.
Yeah, if your car is up on a lift and it's 6+ feet in the air, and there's 4 anchoring points that hold that lift up, and it's pretty solid, chances are very minimal that car is going to come down crashing down on you. The safest lifts are the drive-on lifts that are ramp planks that will raise your car up. Those are the safest types of lifts, but even those can potentially fail. So whenever you're underneath a car, it's always a bit of a challenge. You just want to make sure your equipment is accurate and you're in a safe position and all that. And you have an exit strategy. If you feel it coming down, practice getting out from under there as quickly as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, that move might not work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, the ones I love are like the quick oil change places where you pull the car in and there's like a basement with a big hole, and they go down a set of stairs and they're under your car. It's just a big opening, and they can work on your car. But you always hear stories of somebody walking, just falling right into that thing too. Yeah.
People walking, falling in, people driving into the pit.
Yeah, they miss it and whoop, right down in.
Yeah. There's hazards in all of those types of things. The bottom line on auto maintenance, though, is that there's a great deal of that type of stuff that you can do yourself without putting yourself in danger. I always tell people, start top side. So if you're doing maintenance top side, meaning you're not getting under the car, there's a lot you can do. Raise your hood. Just start by cleaning your engine compartment. Check your hoses. Make sure they're not cracked or anything like that.
Bubbling.
You can change your hoses fairly easily. It's usually screwdriver, maybe wrenches or things that you can pull that hose off and replace it with a new one. I always recommend go buy the new hose first, then take the old one off and fit it in. And if you're dealing with topside hose that you're replacing, you oftentimes don't have to worry about too much fluid draining out. So you don't have to worry about too much mess in your driveway, but you get a pan to collect some of that stuff at the bottom. But filters, very easy to change out. Sometimes if you, I used to go to the gas station and undo my air filter and take the filter element out and then blow it with tire pressure air. And it would blow out some of the heavy particles, put it back in, and then close it up. So it's a way to extend the life of your air filter.
Yeah.
So, but things like that, topside things you can do, change your wiper blades, polish your headlights if the plastic is getting a little crazed, check your fluids, and again, get in there, detail the engine compartment. Detailing is a great way to understand your car because you're spending the time getting to know it, seeing the wires that connect certain things and what goes where and why things are, where they are supposed to be. It's a helpful process.
Yeah, and another thing I learned from the Chris Fix guy was, I'm always going in the car and I spray things and I wipe them, and he gets these brushes and he sprays into the brush and then he brushes things, so you don't get spray going everywhere. You don't have any overspray on the windows you have to clean off later, and the little brushes really get, it's like a round brush, and you do the dashboard and it really gets into the little nooks and crannies of the dashboard and gets it so much cleaner. So just little things like that you can learn. Yeah. And I recommend the YouTube. I think it's going to stick around for a while.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Going back to the comments, Eric from earlier, when I said thank you for the opening, he says you're welcome. Of course, Jake says good morning, Clutch Radio.
Morning,
Rich
Jake.
Whelan says Big Dan. Hello, Rich. I haven't seen or talked to him in forever. I was in a show with him. He does impressions. He did a good Doc Brown. It was this impression show that we all were doing different impressions. We all did De Niro. It was funny. Bunch of De Niros. Ross has a good question. Where can I find a car that needs work for my 16-year-old daughter? Oh,
great question.
There are several sources, and Raffi has a few he's going to tell you now.
Sure. There's a lot of places you can find. I always recommend to people, go to your local mechanic. They see cars there all the time that people are tired of fixing. They have a 1998 Toyota with 107,000 miles. It's going to need a timing belt. It's going to need this. It's going to need that. It needs about $1,500 worth of work, and the car's worth $1,200. So that's a great place to start. Oftentimes, they'll have a little board in the shop that has cars for sale pinned up there, and they're local, so you can drive over and see them. You can take your time deciding. That's a great place to start. Check with your local church, the church in your community. Oftentimes they'll have a bulletin board set up there, and they'll car for sale. And you want to buy local because the costs tend to be less. You're not in a hurry, and it's going to be a car that the mechanic has worked on. Now, if there's serious work that needs to be done, then you can hire the mechanic to do that work and factor that into the price of the car. But you can also look at again some of the local areas where, again, in your community there may be services that are available through, like we used to work through the high school, the auto shop, and sometimes they would take your car on as a project to work on the car. Your 16-year-old daughter, talk to her about what her comfort level is with mechanics, and start doing some projects on cars at the house that run well, and do basic things like change the oil. Start with cleaning too. You learn tremendous amounts by cleaning the car, washing the car, cleaning the brake dust off the wheels, talking about where does that brake dust come from? Oh, it's from these brakes. Whenever you press down, it powderizes the pad, and that goes out in the wheel, and things like that. You're learning in the process. So back to your question, check locally, check with local mechanics. Above that tier, you can certainly go Craigslist. Cars are often for sale on Craigslist. Be very careful when you're vetting a Craigslist purchase. Again, it helps. The closer to home they are, the more they're likely to be honest salespeople that are not trying to scam you. eBay is kind of iffy because you oftentimes can't see the car in person. Also, check your local dealers, because oftentimes dealers will get trade-ins, and you can go in, you can tell them, look, I'd like to have a car that has not been through your trade-in service. So dealer brings a car in, they might get it traded in on $1,200 trade-in value. They're going to put $2,000 into it with tires, brakes, a bunch of stuff, and then they're going to put it on the lot for $5,000. They might be interested in just letting you have it at the $1,200 number.
Or more. They might want to make a few bucks, but a lot of those cars too, they have wholesalers, or they send them to auction, and they might expect to lose money on that car, so they might sell to you for $1,200. But also, speaking of auctions, I have access to a lot of auctions like Copart and Insurance Auto Auctions, which the public can buy from on some of those auctions. And you can go preview the car, and some of them run, some of them don't. Another thing, when you're searching on Craigslist, you can type in, for like a key term like needs work, or needs brakes, or something specific that it needs.
Handyman special.
Right. And you put in a low price, maybe you put $250, maybe you go up to $2,000, and you figure you're going to negotiate. But I find you never want to put in like a 0 or 1 or $100, because people will put in like $12, but they want 12,000. But they'll put 12 as the number. So you go search for $12 car, and then it's 12,000 that they want. So that's one good way. But I would say the cleaning the car, if I'm ever going to buy a used car, I would probably say to the person, can I go wash your car real quick? Like, let me wash this first. And you take it to the car wash, and then you go to dry it, and you look through it, because things reveal themselves as you wash a car. Like as you're walking around drying every panel, go, oh, there's a scratch there. Oh, look, there's a little dent here. Things you'll never notice when you first look at a car, because usually when you first look at a car, especially if you want to buy the car, you've got rose-colored glasses on, and you don't see the flaws, and you're not looking for the flaws. When you're buying cars professionally, like for flipping or for resale, you are looking at them with, crap-colored glasses on. You're looking for, I need to find everything wrong with this car.
That's right.
And going through with a fine-tooth comb, you don't have the time. But washing it 15 minutes or so, you can find a lot of problems while you're washing a car. Yeah.
And again, just starting your project, you can even start with your existing cars and get some familiarity. You might think that your daughter's interested in working on cars. If you test that theory out on your family cars to begin with, she might actually fess up and say, you know what? I thought I'd like this, but I don't. I find it messy. I find it difficult. It's frustrating. I'd rather just have a car that's jump in and go. And that solves your problem, because then you haven't gone out and bought a $1,200 car that needs a lot of attention, that's just sitting in your driveway haunting you.
Yeah, I there was somebody that, through the Buy Nothing project on Facebook, somebody was giving away something. I went to their house, and I was giving away something, and they're like, would you mind dropping it off? I said, sure. So I went to this lady's house, and there in the house, in the yard, was this beautiful Beetle. It was covered. It was, like a 74 Beetle. And she's like, yeah, my daughter bought it. There's all the books or parts in the front seat. There's all this stuff. She said, it's been sitting for 2 years. We don't know what we're going to do with it yet. And that's a good way to find cars that way too, is drive around your neighborhood. And if there's something under a tarp, chances are they haven't worked on it in a long time.
Yeah, I've got my eye on a car right now that's been sitting in our neighborhood for quite a while, and it's starting to get mossy, and a little bit of the tire pressure is going low. So I'm about to put a note on the windshield.
Yeah. Going to our good friend Ray, our dealer Ray, he wants to know, actually, we'll get to this question in a second because he made a really good point here too. Trade-ins and used cars right now are historic highs. He would like to tell our viewers that there are tons of new cars under $20,000 with rebates so good he can't buy them at used auctions at those prices. Like right now, Hyundai's got some $5,000 rebates. So there is, you get a 10-year powertrain, 5-year 60-mile bumper to bumper. So there are some new cars out. But that does bring us to his other question. He wants to know your question. I don't know why he doesn't care why I care. Thanks, Ray. Raffi, what do you have in the new Hyundai IQ? They're blowing out the 2020s for $16,900. They get 58 miles per gallon.
Yeah,
so to be the Prius killer.
So these are great cars. There's so much value, and my theory is that they're blowing out the 2020s because not enough people were buying them. Who needed a car in 2020? If you had a car, it stayed parked. If you didn't have a car, you didn't need to go anywhere. So the demand that Hyundai expected for these cars dropped considerably. At $16,900, they're probably selling them at probably a loss, because they need those cars to get out there, populate the roads, become culturally visual and popular with people, and get people to do what Prius did, which was they papered communities all over with Priuses to where people started thinking, wow, that's the car to have. And there, Dan's got, he's pulled up the car. And this is a very, very high quality vehicle at a very good price. If you're not going to buy it new, and again, $16,900 is not a lot of money. If you're not going to buy it new and you want to wait a couple of years, you'll be able to get them for under $10,000. They'll be a dime a dozen for under 10 grand within 2 years from now. And that's just absolutely nothing for a car that comes with that much value. These were supposed to have been selling at higher volume, and that's the challenge now, Ray, is that they're literally giving them away. And 58 miles per gallon for that price is phenomenal value. And even if you buy them on payments, a little bit of money down and payments, I think your payments end up being under $200 because there's no interest. So that's an awful lot of car to get for $2,400 a year. You get reliability, durability. It's a very safe car. I think they got a 4-star rating. I don't know if they got all 5s. I'll have to check on that. But yeah, a great car to buy, in my opinion, now.
Yeah, and they make different models of the Ioniq. They have the plug-in hybrid, the regular hybrid, and the all-electric. The all-electric's not available in the state of Washington yet. But yeah, they definitely are making some good-looking cars. And Kia right now, they have a pure electric coming out that is absolutely gorgeous.
Yes.
And I think that it could potentially be be hurting the Teslas. I think it's that good.
It's entirely possible. And look, Kia is really, really proving to be an important car company now. And they're very good at chasing successful car brands. Their high-end models have been chasing BMW and slowly eating away at that market. They've certainly eaten away at the Mercedes and Lexus market. One of the biggest and I think most important things that people are going to be talking about, Tiger Woods, his life was saved by a Kia. There's no other way to say that, because he was driving very fast.
Well, it was a Genesis. It's a Hyundai and Kia. They're all the same brand, same owners.
Yes. The high-end model Genesis. And that car saved his life because it was multiple airbag. He was seatbelted in. And the crash was quite devastating if you see the vehicle. But the car survived. The main interior cocoon survived and saved his life. He did sustain injuries, of course, but that car and the engineering that they developed for that car saved his life. So Dan, you've pulled up this is their latest model.
That's the new Kia EV6.
Yeah, great looking car. It's going to eat away certainly at Tesla's market. And listen, Tesla's value now is diminishing because they had a lot of opportunity in the marketplace for many years because they were the only game in town. Yes, they were expensive, and they've been working very hard to bring the price of their entry model down. But the reality is the big car companies are starting to catch up. They're starting to build these cars at a high level, and there's some fantastic automobiles available now, electric, all electric, hybrid, and we're just going to see more and more of them. The amount of technology now available in brand new cars it's jaw-dropping. It just in the past 10 years, we've seen enormous gains. Whereas if you look back between 1990 and 2000, that 10-year period of automotive gains is not that significant. But if you look back at a 2010 car and you look today at a 2020 car, this is significant difference in what those automobiles offer.
Yeah, and here's the Hyundai SUV that is similar to the one he was driving in.
Yeah, and that car and all of Hyundai, Kia, Genesis, all of their engineering team, that is what saved Tiger Woods' life.
Yeah.
That, and of course, federal regulations, which, you need the federal government to intervene with the automotive companies, because while they do a very good job of developing technology and safety features, all companies need to be pushed into meeting challenges. Otherwise, they'll just meet market needs, which is typical for companies. We just want to sell more of what we're making. So the government intervenes and says, okay, but can you do this? And shouldn't you do this? And advocacy groups suggest that we do more of this. And that's how we got seatbelts. That's how we got airbags. That's how we got disc brakes. That's how we got all these various safety features that are important and help save lives.
Yes. So regulations on some things are actually fantastic.
Yes. Yeah.
Speaking of regulations, not a good segue, but I think it's time to go old school.
All right.
Raffi's favorite segment and mine.
All right. Yes, indeed. We're going old school today. We've got a fantastic car, and I'm going to pop it early so Dan can pull it up because it's going to be a hard one to find. And it is the Toyota Sera, S-E-R-A. If you've never seen the Toyota Sera, you're going to love this car. Now, when you first see it, you're going to be surprised by a couple of things. First off, you're going to wonder, why is this car on Raffi's list? Well, it seems common until you open the doors. And that's when it gets really exciting, because the Toyota Sera has a wonderful feature that is so exciting on a very inexpensive car. They have what's called butterfly doors. And those butterfly doors, when you pull up to a stop, you get out of that car, people stop looking at that car as a common car. Now everybody's looking at it. They want to know what kind of car that is. Now, they made them primarily for European, Japanese, and Canadian markets. They weren't imported into the United States, but now that enough time has passed, you can legally import them into the United States. They made them, I believe the first show car was done in the late 80s, and then the first production, I think, started in 1990. These cars, in addition to having the butterfly doors and really cool features, which we'll get to in a minute, they're just basic Toyotas with inline 4-cylinder engines, very easy to maintain. They use the internal components of the Tercel, and the Paseo, I think, was the other one that they imported, Toyota imported in the 90s. Very simple, very easy, very basic. Brakes, engine, transmission, all similar stuff. Nice, beautiful round greenhouse. So the side glass comes up and curves over to the top. So you get a kind of a wraparound feel, a very 90s design, lots of fun. They made about 15,000 of them the first year. And then after that, in 91, between 91 and 95, they made maybe 6,000. So they became rare quickly. And the last version, what they call the Phase 3 version, had some really exciting features in it, including the most desirable feature of all, which was their SLSS, which was their Super Live surround sound system, which had in the back an illuminated boombox that lit up the back of your car and did stroboscopic lighting and did all this sort of very, very funky, disco type lighting from the nightclub scene. And so that sound system, integrated sound system, was pretty cool. And it's an option that if you can find a Toyota Serra with that option, it's a great one to have. Another one of the options they had was they had these aromatic senses that you could program and that would let certain aromas through the car as you were driving. So you could, I think they had a cinnamon one, they had an orange one, they had a peppermint one, and I believe they had them linked up to sort of lighting as well in the car. So you could get that sort of vibe of atmosphere inside the car. But look in this photo that Dan has pulled up, you can see the side glass moves up to the roof. So you have, every one of them has kind of a sunroof built in. So a very, very cool car, inexpensive to maintain, also very inexpensive to buy. These, you can get one that needs some work, probably for still under $10,000. A very, very nice one might be 15 to 20,000, and a beautiful, fully optioned one might set you back as much as 25,000. But again, you get a very, very unique car that you're not going to see at any Cars and Coffee. And when you pull up in one of those, you're gonna surprise everybody when you open the doors.
Here's one in Florida.
And what's their asking price?
They're asking $8,000.
There you go.
It's a right-hand drive.
Yeah, and most of them will be right-hand drive. Some of them will be left-hand drive. It looks like the condition of this one is actually in pretty good shape. That's an automatic. That brings it down a little bit. This doesn't have the sound system, but looks like it's in good condition. Again, these cars can have 100,000 miles, and they're still going to go another 100,000 miles. There's the engine, very, very basic engine. If you need to do the timing chain, it's going to set you back a whopping $500. So what? Parts are available. Some of the specialty parts you'll have to search for, but that's okay. Make sure that the car is fairly complete, and you don't have to do too much work trying to hunt it down. But boy, you can have an awful lot of fun in a Toyota Serra.
No airbag.
No, not all of them do. Some of the later series ones, I think, do.
This one has 111,000 miles.
Yeah.
And it looks like this dealership did zero cleaning up of this car before they took the pictures.
Probably true. A lot of times dealerships don't do that. They are just in and out with their vehicles, but you can have an awful lot of fun with these cars. Again, inexpensive. People that see them, they're not sure what they are. They kind of know they're a Toyota, but the minute you open that door, you have a whole different set of conversations.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah. And a car many people don't know about.
Yeah. I was not aware.
Yeah, that's one of the things I try to do with old school is pick out stuff that's unique, different, that people haven't seen before, and we'll try something different.
Awesome. Have you ever driven one of those?
I have.
Was it right or left hand?
I drove a right-hand drive one. A friend of mine here in Washington has two of them. He has a blue one and a green one.
Oh,
And I've been tempted to buy his blue one because it has the stereo in it, and it's pretty cool.
yeah. Ray brings up a good point. Talking old school, 95 Chevy half-ton, three-quarter-ton, 4x4 prices are through the roof.
Mm.
And he does have a good point. People miss being able to work on their truck because now they're big computers.
That's true. And, working on your truck is a big deal. Same thing with farm equipment. People used to be able to repair their tractors. Now the equipment is so sophisticated and has so much sophisticated machinery within it, the software and all that. If a farmer is relying on his tractor and can't plow the field because it's got a minor mishap, it costs thousands of dollars to move a big rig, to move a tractor down to the repair facility to get it serviced. And a lot of times the big tractor companies won't release the information that independents need to maintain their own vehicle.
Yep. It is crazy that, they tell kids learn computers, learn coding.
Yeah.
That's why you need to, because it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's going to be all over.
Absolutely. And more, if you like in your cell phone or your computer, it's harder and harder to open up and figure out what's going on because you're not able to physically inspect the mechanics. And if you're not aware of what's going on and you can't visually assess it, it's much harder to diagnose how to repair it. And with coding, there's only so much you can do in that arena, practicing and figuring it out. The last time I took apart a cell phone to see how it was made so that I could figure out how to, repair it, I wasn't able to put it back together. And I'm pretty mechanically inclined because the components had come apart enough. I had dug deep enough into it, and it wasn't a working phone. I'd just done it on curiosity.
Right.
But there was no way that I would be able to figure out how to repair it at this stage.
Looking at some car deals for this month. Just pulled up a website real quick.
Yeah.
Like Genesis right now, they're doing 0% for 72 months on some of their vehicles, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
The Genesis G70, which is their smaller car, is at 0%. The GV80, which is their SUV, 1.9%. So there's some good, doesn't look like there's any rebates, just some really good incentives price-wise or finance-wise. Trying to see who's got the biggest rebate right now. It looks like Jeep. Jeep has available right now in the Pacific Northwest a $6,500 rebate on the 2021 Jeep Cherokee.
Oh, wow.
They also have rebates right now on the Jeep Gladiator, the new pickup truck.
Yeah.
That was over asking for the longest time.
Yeah, the market is shifting now. People are realizing that there's some sort of light at the end of the tunnel. And I think car companies are also trying to figure out how to market now. Do we market do we say it's time to get out and have fun? Do we stop shooting commercials with people with masks? And do we encourage sort of the post-pandemic automotive experience where you're out there commuting and you're out there having adventures with your family and everybody is maskless? Do you show your Vax card and smile and all those kinds of things that seem to be part of the whole scenario now?
Yeah. A friend of mine just bought a Gladiator and he texted me. He said, "Is this a good deal?" And it was at a dealership about an hour from here. And it was a dealership that I had known because someone else had gone there to buy a car. They've got great prices, but on their website, they'll show this is the retail price, not MSRP, retail price. And they give this huge discount. And then you realize, okay, retail price is what they're marking it up over MSRP, and they're discounting it. So you're actually not buying it for MSRP. You're still buying for more. So I thought that's what they were doing with this Gladiator because it was too good to be true. And I said, I need to see the window sticker. And I found it on their website. It was a very transparent dealership. They popped up on their website. There's the actual window sticker. Had like a $51,000 window sticker, and they were selling it for like 44. So way under window sticker. And I said, they're probably going to try to sell you some appearance package or some maintenance package that they say is already included, or some, some special body wax kit that they did. And lo and behold, there was, when he got the paperwork, there was a $299 accessories charge that they were trying to make money on. And I said, tell them you don't want it. And they're going to tell you it's already on the car anyway.
Yeah.
Then you definitely don't want it because you're not going to pay for it. It's already on the car. You're going to get it anyway.
Right.
And he texted me back. He goes, holy crap. Do you know what you're talking about? They just said, that's exactly what they said. It's already on the car. Because I'm not paying for it. And so now I got it for free.
There you go.
But yeah, the tricks, there are no new tricks in the car business.
Yep.
And that's why we recommend, and maybe next week we can talk a little bit more about, what to do when you go to a dealership. We've done it before, but I think it's always useful information.
Yeah.
If you've had any bad experiences buying a car, Ray has a unique way that he sells cars. I believe he does. I think you do this, Ray. I could be wrong, but you just do tax and license are included. Here's the price of the car.
Mm-hmm.
Ray's not a huge dealership, but he does really good business and he's an honest guy. So, there are some good guys out there for sure.
Absolutely. And look, whenever you're doing any kind of car buying, knowledge is power. And so the more you know about what you're going to do and how you're going to make your deal, the more powerful you are. You're in control of the deal. A lot of people go into dealership and the dealership, they can just see you coming. They'll take control of the deal and they'll relieve you of the burden of cash. And
yes,
you will drive away with a car that you probably paid too much for, probably not way too much for. But if you're interested in saving a little bit of money, it's a good opportunity to learn ahead of time and protect your interest.
And it goes right back to where we started. If you spend more time on researching the car than you do on actually buying the car, it's just like doing the diagnosis. You do the diagnosis of, what kind of car do I need? How much am I willing to spend? What kind of cars are out there? Do all the research ahead of time. And you can ask us these questions. We can answer them. We can help you. You can Google. You can go on YouTube. I'm sure there's tons of videos.
Yeah.
But, little things that we learned in car seller school, if there is such a thing. My first car sales job was at Livingston Pontiac Buick in Woodland Hills, California. And I had 10 days of training before they let me even talk to a customer. They don't do that anymore. But one of the things they taught me, and I still remember this is, and I've always told people, don't do this. If someone's checkbook is in their upper pocket of their shirt or their title of their car that they're trading in, if it's like very visible and available or sticking out of their back pocket, they're buying a car that day. There's just, they came prepared. They're definitely buying a car. Don't show your hand. I don't know what the title is. I don't know if I'm going to trade this in or not. Maybe I'll trade it. I don't know. Don't worry about that. Let's worry about the price of your car. So there's a lot of different, tricks that we were taught as salespeople that I then taught my customers of how to manipulate the deal to make sure they got a good deal and I got the sale.
Yeah. You walk into any establishment that has adjustable pricing, and automobile dealerships are one of the few that still have adjustable pricing. You want that adjustment to favor you, not them. When you go to a restaurant, you don't have adjustable pricing necessarily. Same thing with Costco or anything. But I tell people when they go shop in the supermarket, you stand in front of that whole giant area that has various objects for sale and you price compare. So, this one is $2.99 for 4. This one's $1.99 for 6. Oh, look at this one on sale. I buy 2, I'll get 8 for this, and that's the one you buy.
Right.
So just that moment of comparison shopping helps you make that decision. Yet people don't do that with automobiles. So you take your time, you spend pretty much, for most people, the second highest amount of money you'll spend in your lifetime, the house being the most. Do your research and prepare ahead of time.
And really, if you think about it now, college is your second highest. And you can't negotiate that either.
That's true. College is your second highest now.
I mean, the two highest are, if you look at the 3 highest expenses, you have house, college, and cars. House, negotiable. Cars, negotiable. College, no, you can't. I mean, you can't apply for for grants, and you can apply for things. So you can get some money off, but you can't call the college and go, yeah, you know what, 20 grand a semester? I'm feeling 8. What do you guys think about 8? You got space. I mean, what if we don't show up? I mean, my kid's got a good grade point average. You want them, right? Let's go 8.
Let's go 8.
Yeah, but don't try that at a restaurant because you will get spit in your food.
Well, again, back to the car purchasing, it's all comes down to education. And, You and I, we like cars. So for us, it's fun.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to spend the time to learn it yourself, call us. Count on us. We'll help you. We'll help you with the decision. We'll walk you through the deal, and we'll save you a little money in the process.
Yeah. And what's amazing is, and I say this all the time, people always call me after they get the deal.
Yeah.
After they bought the car. And no matter what you say, yes, you got a good deal. You
got a good deal.
Great.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
Good for
That's
you.
awesome.
Fantastic. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Once you know they've done it.
Yes. Let me give you the definition of market value of a car and how to figure out the exact market value. It's very simple. Market value is the most you'll pay and the least they'll sell it for.
There you go.
Somewhere in those two areas, that's where you're going to have a deal.
That's it.
And that's the end of the show, too.
All right.
Look at that, another hour. Just boom.
That guy. I get the point. Right. I get it right this time.
I always have to forget I'm mirror imaged here. So yeah, we'll be back next week with this fine show. And if you're listening to the podcast, you can listen to all of them going back to the very first one. They're available on Amazon, Apple, Google, wherever you get Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And the 1 year anniversary show is coming up. We might have a homoculator finally ready to show. I think I found the homoculator example that we can use. And we also have a couple other cool announcements that'll be coming up about some projects that Raffi and I are doing. A little side project we might be throwing out there.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that. And if you like movies, Monday night, the Aradan Film Festival right here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Our movie is Goonies this week.
Oh, Goonies. Okay.
We're talking about Goonies.
Wow.
That's Mondays. It's
a lot of well-known actors in Goonies.
Yes. Monday at 6 p.m. on the West and 9 p.m. on the East. Every Monday we do a movie show. And every Friday we do a social hour. If you just want to play games and have fun on the internet, that's what we do. All right. Well, that's it, everybody. We'll see you next time. For Clutch Radio, I'm Dan.
And I'm Raffi.
And that's the show.